Welcome students. Let's study the next part of unit 1, that is drug potency and intrinsic activity. So potency is another term by which we can compare two drugs, the action of two drugs. So let us see what is potency. To understand potency, we have to understand first the graph that is mentioned here. So this graph is the has y-axis. On the y-axis it has the increase in heart rate, and on the x-axis it has the dose of the drug. So this is specially for a this graph is for a drug which is increasing the heart rate. So this particular curve, the first curve is for the drug A, the second curve is for drug B, and C is for the drug third drug, that is C. So let's understand uh, peculiarities of each drug. So the drug A, you can see here the dose of drug A is quite less. It's around 0.1 micrograms per kg as compared to the drug B, which is more than 0.3 micrograms per kg. So drug A, the amount of drug A required is less to produce a response, while so that we can say that the ratio of ED50 of drug A, ED50 of drug B upon the ratio upon ED50 of drug A is 10. So this means that drug A is 10 times more potent than drug B. While if we see the drug C, the dose is around 0.3 mg micrograms per kg, but the effect that is it is showing, it is only 50% of B, and the ED50 for drug C is also very less. That means it has a low intrinsic activity because this is because drug A and drug B are the full agonist for the enzymes or the receptor, but drug C is a partial agonist. So so that is why its intrinsic activity is half the maximal effect of drug A or drug B. So the potency of drug C is less than drug A or drug C. So why is this important, intrinsic activity and potency? Because so that the doctor can choose a particular drug, which particular drug needs to be administered to the patient according to the conditions that the patient would be having. So that's why it is important uh, to study the potency and the intrinsic activity of any drug. So let's move on to the next topic, that is drug antagonism. So the term agonist and antagonist have been already introduced to you in the previous video lectures. So agonist is the drug which is going to carry out a certain physiological function, while antagonist is the drug which is going to uh, block a certain physiological function. So how does this antagonism occurs? So there are different types by which drugs antagonize a certain physiological function. So they are according to the they are divided into different types, that is chemical antagonism, functional antagonism, or competitive antagonism. In competitive antagonism itself, it is divided into equilibrium and non-equilibrium competitive, and the last one is non-competitive antagonism. So let's see one by one what are chemical antagonism and so on. So chemical antagonism involves direct chemical interaction between agonist and antagonist. So this will be a type of chemical reaction that is going to completely inactivate a agonist. Antagonist is going to come and react with the agonist to completely inactivate the agonist, so that it is not able to elicit any pharmacological activity. That is, it is going to make agonist pharmacologically inactive, and after getting inactive, the agonist in its new form is going to get eliminated from the body. So example of this is chelation. So chelators like EDTA or dimercaprol etc. are given to people who have ingested a large amount of toxic metals like mercury, arsenic etc. So one of the very famous chelator is a dimer. The compound is known as dimercaprol. It has two sulfhydryl groups. So these two sulfhydryl groups come and react with the toxic metals, that is mercury and arsenic, and whenever there is excess of mercury or arsenic in the body, so these come and bind to the sulfhydryl group of dimercaprol, comes and binds to the mercury and arsenic and makes it inactive. uh, why is mercury and arsenic toxic to our body? So this is because a lot of our enzymes have sulfhydryl, two or more sulfhydryl groups on their active sites, which carry out a lot of physiological reactions. But when the mercury or arsenic uh, metal comes and binds to the sulfhydryl group, uh, these enzymes are getting inactivated, and then the protein function stops, and later on this leads to stopping of the physiological reactions that are there, and then finally leading to uh, fatal uh, fatal results, a lot of time deaths etc. to the patient. So this chelators, especially dimercaprol, comes and binds to the mercury, so that it is not it is going to sacrifice its sulfhydryl groups, so that the mercury or arsenic metal does not go and bind to the uh, enzyme sulfhydryl group. So this is how the enzymes are saved, and then your normal function is continued. So the dimercaprol with mercury and arsenic will be eliminated by from the body with the help of urine etc. So this is the way how chelation works. So this is a type of chemical antagonism. Then comes functional antagonism. What do you mean by functional antagonism? So whenever two agonists act independently but have different effects, are uh, it means uh, it means they are having functional antagonism to each other, such that they tend to reduce each other's effect, that is nullify each other's effect. So you can understand it by the example of acetylcholine and epinephrine. So acetylcholine and epinephrine uh, both are the drugs which can work on parasympathetic nervous system. So but both of them work in the opposite way, such as if acetylcholine is slowing the heart rate, epinephrine is accelerating the heart rate. Acetylcholine stimulates intestinal movements or constricts pupils in the eyes, but epinephrine does the opposite work. Epinephrine uh, inhibits the intestinal movement and also dilates the pupil. So this by this way, the acetylcholine and epinephrine are completely working completely opposite to each other, hence showing functional antagonism. Then comes the antagonism which is very frequently encountered in clinical practice, that is competitive antagonism. What do you mean by competitive antagonism? Why is it called competitive? Is because the receptor for agonist as well as the antagonist is the same. But if agonist comes and bind, it will go and give a particular physiological reaction, but if antagonist comes and binds, it is going to stop the reaction. So that's why since the receptor is same, the term here is competitive antagonism, because there will be only one receptor which is available for both the agonist and the antagonist. So for that, they both will compete with each other to come and sit at the receptor, hence the name competitive antagonism. So there are two types of bonds between between the antagonist that is there and the receptor. So according to the two types, they have divided competitive antagonism as equilibrium competitive and non-equilibrium competitive. Let's see one by one what is equilibrium and non-equilibrium competitive. So the equilibrium competitive is also called as reversible competitive, because the bond between antagonist and the receptor is loose, such as van der Waals force or hydrogen bond, etc., would be the bonds that are formed between the antagonist and the receptor. However, uh, so because of this is a loose bond, so it can be changed. It is easy to break and antagonist can come and bind there. That hence it is equilibrium competitive or reversible competitive. However, whenever the bond is of covalent bond, so we have studied this in previous lectures also. Whenever there would be covalent bond, what is going to happen? It is going to take more energy to break, right? It is not readily breakable, hence it is not readily reversible, hence the term is non-equilibrium or irreversible competitive. uh, so equilibrium antagonism depends the amount of it depends upon the amount of drug that is there. So if there is high concentration of the antagonist or against the as compared to the agonist, the it will show antagonism. But if the antagonist concentration is less and agonist concentration is more, then it will show the function of agonist will be carried out, hence the name equilibrium antagonist. So this is about the equilibrium antagonist. Let's study about non-equilibrium antagonist. So as I told you earlier, non-equilibrium antagonism happens because of the covalent bond that is formed, uh, and it does not depend on the concentration of the drug that is there. So let's study it with the example of the graph. So this graph represents 4 drugs of response versus the dose antagonism. So A is when there is no antagonist given. B is when there is increase of antagonism, that is the equilibrium competitive agonist, means whenever there will be increase in the antagonism, increase in the concentration, the effect is going to increase, the response is going to get increased. However, this graph is for the non-equilibrium competitive antagonism. So let's see. when there is no drug antagonist given. So this is the curve when no antagonism is given. When there is reduced amount of uh, increasing dose of increasing the dose of antagonism, what happens is, as you can see, the response is, as the drug concentration is increased, the response is getting reduced means the antagonist is going and working at this particular receptor. So this brings us to the next topic, that is non-competitive antagonism. So non-competitive antagonism uh, occurs when the antagonist has a different site of action than that of agonist. Means, yeah, the receptor here, or the active site where the agonist and antagonist are going to come and bind, is not the same. They both are different. But what happens, uh, if antagonist comes and binds to a particular place, it is going to change the conformity of the uh, it is going to change the conformity of the receptor site of agonist. So because of the change of conformity, agonist cannot come and bind to that particular receptor or the active site. Hence, it will not elicit the pharmacological response that we wanted. So this is how non-competitive antagonism occurs. Or else, uh, antagonist non-competitive antagonist can also stop a particular reaction uh, at in middle of the cascade of the cycle of the reaction is there. So it can stop the reaction in a particular place. So let's see. So there are this is a example of a contraction. So this X is agonist and this receptor is receptor for B, drug B. So when this comes and binds, okay, so there would be depolarization of the membrane and hence calcium ions will be released and contraction will occur. But what will happen, you give a drug antagonist Y, this is Y, okay. This drug Y will stop the free calcium release, okay. Hence there will be no contraction. So here the receptors are different, but the end effect is the same. That is, because of the antagonist Y, the contraction is not occurring, even though X is coming here and working, but because of the presence of Y, the contraction has stopped. So this is how non-competitive antagonism works. So this brings a so example of non-competitive antagonism is a antihypertensive drug known as dioxazide, which is a non-competitive antagonist. So this brings us to the end of the unit 1 topic. Please go through the notes, the page numbers that I have mentioned, please go through them. It's page number 10 to 18 and of the book itself. And after going through the book, we will have a doubt solving session on this topic. Please ensure that you have read the book also for a better understanding, because all of your MCQs that you will get, probably the MCQs that you are going to get for the exams are going to be there from the book itself. So thank you for your attention.